Ask a MAGA Republican what would happen if former President Donald Trump was convicted in any of 4 criminal cases. And the answer is almost always same: civil war. This answer is valid whether you speak to ordinary Republican voters, local elected officials, or even former national GOP leaders. It's also an indication that right-wing complaints policies are getting dangerously out of control. In Georgia, State Senator Colton Moore warned politician and podcaster Steve Bannon that any investigation into Trump would likely lead to a civil war. On the subject, Moore also seemed to imply that the Georgia state troopers would be willing to participate in any effort to get Trump out of jail. This last part may be a fantastic thought for Moore, but he is not alone. Former Georgia Republican gubernatorial candidate Kandiss Taylor also voiced the chorus of war cries, describing Trump's accusations as treason, abduction of our country, telling podcast host William Wallis this is a war, and I hope pray that it will be a weapon. Find solutions before using it. We are at war right now. A war for our freedom. Moore and Taylor are considered marginal figures. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp rudely rejected Moore's call to fire Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis, while Taylor was a distant last in the party primaries. But the right's calls for violence don't just come from local politicians in and around Atlanta. Former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin, who served as the vice presidential standard-bearer of the GOP in 2008, assured Newsmax's Eric Bolling that a civil war would happen if prosecutors didn't drop all charges against Trump. Those who run this disgrace and those who created this twaddle justice system. We will not continue to put up with this. Palin told Bolling, I like that you said we should be angry. It will not be difficult to set aside growing calls for violence from the right as you specialize in production of extremist political theater. But Republicans do more than fantasize about revenge. Their increasingly specific incitement to violence always includes a clear call to arms for the MAGA movement. The message isn't very subtle: prepare your weapons. Because fire can start at any moment. It would be foolish of us as a nation to ignore both implicit and explicit threats in the right's new civil war messages. The truth is, the violent and provocative threats of our political leaders have a bad habit of urging those who take all this hate speech as gospel to action. The District of Columbia court system is full of them right now. Just before Labor Day holiday, a federal judge sentenced Proud Boys propagandist Joe Biggs to 17 years in prison for his actions during the January 6, 2021 attack on U.S. Capitol. In online posts submitted by the prosecution in November 2020, Biggs openly called for civil war and echoed many of the extremist statements that Republican leaders still make on multiple right-wing news channels almost daily. In a phone